Hello, my name is Mary. In this video, I'm just going to do a brief comparison of Jamovi and R, and this is for students getting started in Stat 1005 to help you know where to place yourself. So in the previous version of the course, everything was done in R and it did cause a number of students some anxiety. So what we're going to try this year is giving you the option to use R or Jamovi, and I'm just going to quickly explain the difference because there are some differences, but there's also a lot of similarities in that Jamovi is built on R and you can actually run R code from inside it. So this is the RStudio window, and this is what's a little off-putting when you're getting used to just doing statistics, is that you have to type out everything that you want to do. So this first line here is going to read in my data, and I've got it in an Excel sheet, but it could be in a different format. Then if I just want to show the first few lines of data, I have to type a command, and then I've got a couple of commands here to do some histograms. So the way RStudio works is that you can type things directly into what we call the console. So if I bring up my pointer, it's been a while since I recorded a video, so I'm a little bit slow, but we have the console window, and this is just very old-fashioned, brings me back memories of when I was a student. So you type stuff in and it gives you an answer, but it can remember what you've done before. And then we have the sort of scripting window where you can save a whole lot of commands to reuse. So I would recommend that you use this option here. Now, if that's not showing up for you when you first open RStudio, then you would go to File and start a new script. And then you can save this and then you can run it later. So if I give you an example of what this looks like, I'm just going to select all of this. Now, I'm not an expert R user, so I may do things a slightly slow way, and you can probably find shortcuts on the internet. But in a way, that's probably good for someone else who's going to be a beginner to see what it's like. So if I run this, it's giving me the header information of the apples data that I've loaded in here, and I've got it to do a histogram, and it's showing up in the plots window. So this is kind of how R works. I think there may even be a viewer to see the data, but I don't know where that is. You can look that up and find it. I've just been working with the scripts. So if that feels a little bit intimidating, an alternative is to use Jamovi. So you can just search online for Jamovi, and it's a free download. RStudio is also free, obviously. And this probably looks a little bit more like a package that you are used to. Put my pointer down for a second. So if we want to load in data here, we would do it in a similar way with the open. I've already loaded it recently, so I'll just put in my apples data. And I can see it all much like I can see it in Excel or a spreadsheet. I actually prefer this. I like to be able to see my data. Just even for very big data sets, I find it helpful to have a scroll through and just have a quick look to see if there's anything unusual about it, see if there's any potential problems with the formatting. Sometimes things jump out at you when you look at your data. If we then want to do some stuff in here, we have some options to do them quite quickly. So I think if you're getting started and you're not fond of scripting, if it's not something that you have done before, and you find it a little overwhelming, I think this is a good place to get started. You can always learn to do the scripting later. So let's say I wanted to do a histogram of the density of these apples. I'm putting density into my variables. I can go down to plots and choose a histogram, and it's going to do it. So there are a couple of limitations with Jamovi, and that is we can't really edit this plot once we've made it. You can choose different themes. So if I go over here, I heart SPSS. So I am an SPSS user, and I find this quite funny because nobody likes the default colors in SPSS, and actually SPSS has changed them a couple of versions ago, so that's quite fun. So you can change the colors using that. If you wanted to do anything more advanced with this graph, you would need to export it as an SVG and probably open it up in Illustrator or something like that, which I am happy to show you how to do if you want to do that later. So you're a little bit more limited in the editing, but it's much easier to get started. Now that said, there's a couple of things that you can do in Jamovi to help you bridge that gap. So this bit section here, modules, allows you to add in additional packages, expansion packs, if you will. And here you can see that I've already installed scatter for doing scatter plots. I tried this flex plot. I didn't think we really needed it. The survey plots actually is quite good, so you might like to play around with that, but RJ editor. So if you went to like manage installed or Jamovi library, you would be able to find things that you can install and you just click to install them. So what I installed is here, the editor. So if you want to try out code, you actually can do it inside of Jamovi. So that command that we used to see the header information was head, and we wouldn't write Apple's data here because the data is already referred to just as data. So we would just put in data. Oops, I've added another bracket. Auto adding brackets is messing me up. And then there's a little note down the bottom, Control-Shift-Enter to run, or you can select it and press the play button. And you can see that it's giving us the same ugly output that we got in RStudio. However, if you wanted to try out the other command that we had, so if I bring up this one again, and let's say I get this histogram command, Control-Shift-Enter. Oh, I didn't change the data. So the only thing I've got to change is that it's not called Apple's data anymore. It's just called data because we loaded it in through Jamovi. Let's try that again. And it can do the R code as well. So if you're worried about getting started in RStudio, then have a go with Jamovi. It is quite easy to get started. You can just have a play around with it. If you want to see the code that it's running, you can see the code if you tick off syntax mode. The only, I'm going to say problem, it's not necessarily a problem, is that this code here is very specific code written for Jamovi. So it's going to run inside of Jamovi, but it's not the same code that you would use if you were running it in RStudio. So you probably don't need to see this code that's running in Jamovi. And if you want to try any of the commands that we see in class, you can go into here and try it out. Or if you're very keen to get started with scripting and learning how to write reports entirely in R, by all means go ahead and do that. And I'll probably ask in class who's decided to use what. And of course, you can change your mind at any point. So hopefully that video was helpful in making a choice on how to get started. And please post any questions you have to the forum.